Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey. I am a security researcher with Varonis, and today we have my good friend Stefan, aka Spaceun, on to join us. Thanks for joining us, Stefan.
Yeah, hey.
So I know you are still very focused on the chip crisis. Can you explain a little bit about what's going on to people who maybe don't know about it from a maker's perspective?
Yeah, so we talked about this in the last couple of streams already. Basically, the car industry thought they didn't, they need to slow down production because of the pandemic, and then they didn't and bought back these manufacturing or the manufacturing time for their silicon they need for their chips. And so this whole thing started a whole crisis, and now I think a lot more will be affected by this than we now think. And this got me panicking a little bit because, as you know, I am manufacturing electronics myself. So what do I do if I don't get the parts for this? Um, and I want to share a very interesting article from Bloomberg here
Hmm.
because it illustrates very well what the actual problem is with manufacturing these things. So they have it explained very well and very visually. So, for example, here's a picture of a NVIDIA card, and just showing you how complex these things can be. And the point is that you can't just ramp up production. Right now, there's a shortage. Why don't we build a new factory? You can't. These factories cost billions of dollars to make. They have to make profit within like 5 years or so, because otherwise, or after that time period, they are basically out of date and new technology is replacing it. And so there's high investment, high risk. And this article is really interesting here about the transistor size and all the aspects of this, of why this is such a complicated business, cleaner than a surgery room. There are also very few people actually working in these factories. A lot of it is automated.
Hmm.
And there was another very interesting graphic in the bottom. Here you see basically the big players of this industry, and you see that basically 3 companies make up most of this.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
and
Intel, Samsung, and what's the last one?
TSMC, and that's actually
What is
I
that?
think the most interesting one. I think Taiwan something something. And TSMC is the one I think profiting the most right now. They are taking on a lot of the orders that the other manufacturers can't do
Huh.
right now. That's also where the ESPs on our projects are built.
In Taiwan?
Not necessarily in Taiwan, but by that company.
Ah, got
They
it.
have factories in other countries as well.
Hmm.
So did the other big companies here. But yeah, and you see, this is not. I mean, it is a big field. It's a very expensive industry, but it's not that many players in the game, and that's the problem. You can't just, we don't have enough silicon or enough factories right now. We just can't buy. We can't just build more. And by the time we would, if they would build more now, by the time these are finished, the crisis is probably over. And right now there's a very high demand. And what happens after that? A lot of people will sit on stock they bought, and
Right.
so
Right, right.
less
And people are
orders will
panic
be
ordering as
placed.
well. I know that most makers and stuff are ordering way, way, way more than they typically would, which is actually exacerbating the problem because everybody's reacting to the shortage in their own way and trying to be defensive about what they're able to do in the interim when it comes to selling product. Because if your whole business relies on selling product, like yours does, or at least a lot of it, then this sort of shortage could be a serious problem, and you have to kind of look ahead and make sure you have enough to get by.
Yeah, exactly. I've also bought up a bunch of stuff just that I don't need right now, but I will need it in a couple of weeks or months. And I don't know if it will be available in a couple of weeks or months. And
Right.
if big companies are doing that, I mean, I buy maybe a couple hundreds of parts, that's like not a big deal. If a bigger company thinks the same thing that I do, and they buy stuff for like the next 6 months ahead, they will buy up stock for everyone else. If they go on Mauser or anything, they will buy just everything up because they need so much of it.
So
And
So this also means something to people who are just buying, finished like boards like the D1 Mini or something like that. These boards are probably also going to get more expensive as the crisis drags on because it's going to get more expensive to manufacture them. The manufacturers are going to go through their stock. And at a certain point, small things like cereal chips might suddenly increase dramatically in cost, meaning that all of a sudden, a board that was $1.80 to buy on AliExpress is now like $6 or $10, which could really mess up a project you're working on, or it could just be annoying if you're trying to buy a couple of yourself.
yeah, the interesting thing here is you would think that maybe only the big or expensive chips are the problem. If I'm making this board and the most important part of it is the ESP itself. And so you would think maybe the ESP gets out of stock, but everything else is fine. But that's not the case. As everyone is buying up stock, they are buying every other part they need too. So you see very common SMD components go out of stock too.
Yeah.
And this problem is just accelerating right now. And what I fear could happen is bigger companies, and I don't mean like Apple or Samsung or these tech companies that know of this problem and know of it since a long time. I mean bigger companies that don't know yet they are actually affected, because electronics are part of everything now. And microcontrollers that are manufactured by these silicon factories, they are in everything. Even the lights I have in front of me right now, I can dim them and change the color. They're controlled by a microcontroller, and the microcontroller is probably out of stock right now. So we will probably see very common items within the next 6 to 12 months just go out of stock or become very expensive. And who knows how long this is going to last. I think this is very interesting, and it's not really on the radar of like the major news outlets yet, but I think we will see it's creeping its way into just like every aspect of our life, because technology is just every aspect of our life now.
Right, and there's a certain amount of stock, like between the average consumer and the shortage that's supplying. So, also just want to say hi to everyone in the chat, Zam, 8-Bit Oni, and also we had a question from LinkedIn which was just B2B or B2C model. If that's related to what we're talking about, then we're talking about both, basically. Right now, this is a business-to-business problem, where people who are ordering directly from manufacturers are just like, yikes, this is going to like cause some serious problems. But in the immediate future, this is going to be a business-to-consumer issue, where suddenly like smart light bulbs become way more expensive, or suddenly there just aren't any on the market. You're going to start seeing random devices that have a smart component or some microcontroller that controls them suddenly just not be able to produce as they were before. And if any of these particular industries has a short lead time, like they're manufacturing them and getting them out the door very quickly, then they could very abruptly just suddenly just be out everywhere. Look forward to maybe in a couple months the mainstream news just being like, why is this major thing out of stock? Well, it turns out months ago there was a shortage in electronics, and now that affects everyone. So kind of a crazy
one last
thing to happen.
Point to give an example. So of the boards I make, none of the parts are actually, or I could still source all of the parts. I just bought a lot of stuff recently, except one component, and that's the voltage regulator. And it's a thing that I cannot easily replace with another voltage regulator just because of size and the specs. And it's one very commonly used on basically also all of Adafruit boards or Arduino boards. Very, very common. It's just out of stock on like all major supplier sites. You could buy like Mauser, DigiKey, Farnell, it's LCS, all just out of stock. And they will have stock back in like 6 months. So what do? I can build the entire board, but I can't finish it because of one key component. It's not an expensive component. It's not something you would expect. And I think that's what's going to basically kill a lot of availability of products in the next months.
Yeah, because
Crazy.
now you're talking about a product redesign where like they might have to go through and make a whole new product that's just based off of available stuff or things that they can just buy a whole absolute ton of to ensure they can like make it through one round of production. But that's crazy because some of these like mid-level suppliers are really in trouble when it comes to selling their main products. So yikes. Yeah. So okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, I think this is like getting the scoop on this is really interesting because the hacker and security community kind of has an early window into this crisis that's just here and coming and is going to affect our society in different ways. So like, it's really interesting to know that like right now it's the business to business people that are getting squeezed, but very soon it's going to be the consumers that are getting squeezed on some of these products that just can't be made right now because of the shortage.
Yeah, if you're a maker and you're planning on some projects, buy the parts now if you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Buy them now. Even for prototype, even if you just need like 3 microcontrollers because you want to try out this design, buy them now. Mm-hmm. Because I can tell you some microcontrollers, there are already only like 9 in stock on Mauser. So if you don't buy now, then you might not be able to in the next 6 months or so.
That's crazy. Yeah, and I will say that if you need to get an ESP8266 for one of Stefan's projects, he and I happen to have a combined several hundred D1 minis that we've squirreled away for just such a crisis. So you can always check out spacehoon.store if you need to pick some up. But anyway, let's see. Okay, so I wanted to talk about a project that I did based on some electronics that are probably now out of stock. If we switch over to my screen, yesterday I decided that I wanted to take some basic components, that being a battery, a motor speed controller, a transmitter, a receiver, and then a couple of servos, and see if I could make something fly. I also have a propeller on a brushless motor. So I had watched a YouTube video a long time ago by Sam Shepard, who made just a piece of dollar store foam fly in about like an hour or so. And I was really impressed by this. The documentation was pretty good. And I've always wanted to do some hacker stuff on drones or RCs. So I decided that I wanted to put something together in 2 hours and report back to see how much flight time I could get out of it. So this is me attempting to, I'm not genuinely attempting to make this fly. I'm just testing to see if I can ramp up and control the servos. But after a brief test to see whether or not all the electronics, yeah, it was very sketchy, whether the electronics could work, I went to the dollar store, got a piece of foam, and slapped together this beautiful creation. Now, my favorite part about this is that it has a built-in self-destruct mechanism. So this LiPo battery is directly positioned in front of 4 really sharp and small bolts that are holding in the propeller assembly. So as soon as you like throw it and let it go, if it were to, say, smash really hard into the ground, the battery is only secured with duct tape, allowing it to shift forward in a way that will almost definitely penetrate the battery casing with these metal rods and cause the entire thing to explode. So, you know, like you don't want some random person taking your drone if you crash it, right? Well, I mean, of course, like, you know, you wanna make sure that, you know, no one steals your drone, right? Right, Stefan? It's called security by design. This is a fail.
Okay, but it's just so you made it so it explodes when it crashes.
Okay, well, I did it.
Yeah.
The design requires you to balance everything forward of this this designated line right here. So obviously that requires putting the battery very far forward. And also I wasn't able to find bolts that were, you know, short. So, you know, you got bolts sticking backwards. You got a poorly secured battery over here. Yes, by design, the drone is basically a Pinto. Do you know that car? It was a car that was very famous for exploding anytime it was rear-ended, but like, you know, this is like flipped. So, yeah, so I was really proud of this. I bent my own push rods on the servos. I took a wall hanger from the dollar store that's designed to like hang like a picture, and I stuck it on the back here, beveled the aileron so that they could go up and down, and taped it, and I was ready to go. So we went to a little park, and then here we go. This is the actual footage of us flying. So you can see here the propeller gets going. Also notice that the propeller kind of like started to screw off, and 3.5 seconds.
Wait, it didn't explode.
Yeah, so amazingly, because Michael kind of like launched it in a way that caused it to slip a little bit, it didn't get like the full impact it needed to execute it. See, it kind of slammed down that way. So instead of going like this, it slammed down like that. And that, unfortunately, caused the self-destruct to only partially deploy. So there's 2 really good puncture holes in the battery that apparently don't go far enough to trigger it to just explode. So, you know, the kids that were playing in the park next to us were really disappointed. Well, I was a little disappointed. But it looks like the drone will fly another day. So a little oopsie, you might notice there's no vertical stabilizer. So I just forgot that part because I got excited and the sun was going down. So as this goes, it starts out pretty well. Like it's getting the lift it needs. But then because there's no stabilizer, it quickly starts to slip sideways. And once it slips sideways, it loses control and hurtles directly into the ground. So little lesson learned. But hey, you can get at least 3.5 seconds of flight, which is 3.5 seconds longer than Michael and 3.5 seconds longer than you, Stefan, because you said my drone was ugly.
No.
Okay.
I didn't.
You said it looked like it was made out of trash.
I would never. No.
Okay, what did you say about my drone?
You asked about your drone, and I said, you mean that piece of cardboard you duct tape things to.
Okay, I guess technically that is pretty accurate, so never mind.
Right?
Yeah, all right, fine. But as you can see, it's relatively easy to get started with this. You might want to include, again, like a vertical stabilizer right here, which I intend to and will report back. But Sam Shepard's channel was a huge inspiration for me getting into electronics, and I've always wanted to try this build, so I'm going to keep at it, and you guys, I will keep you posted as to what happens. But so far, 3.5 seconds log time. I'm feeling pretty good about that. So I also wanted to shout out a project that I really like, or a guide that I really like. Ruiz Sanchez with Random Nerd Tutorials always puts out really excellent guides on using microcontrollers that Stefan and I also use for various other things. But this is a really great guide on being able to take multiple different sensor readings and graph them using an ESP32. So if you want to check this out, I really like this guide, and I really like Random Nerd Tutorials in general. So if you have some ESP32s lying around and you want to start doing some interesting things with them, you can absolutely do some pretty sophisticated stuff with just following a guide and taking maybe 30, 40 minutes. So I love Random Nerd Tutorials. Stefan, have you ever been on that site?
I think so, yeah. This comes up if you search for stuff a lot of the times.
Yeah, I find that Random Nerd Tutorials has really excellent documentation. Their projects can be easily adapted to other purposes. So like if you have an idea and you find a Random Nerd Tutorial like guide on it, you can usually like follow it, modify it a little bit, and then make it do like whatever you wanted your project to do, because they provide great documentation and usually like a video or so to also go along with the guide. So I really like them. I like to shout out good guides that I see. And if you're doing stuff with microcontrollers and you want to find some interesting things you can do, I have followed lots of these guides, especially for the ESP32 camera. They seriously probably have the best documentation for how to use the ESP32 cam that I've seen pretty much anywhere. So shout out to them.
Oh, you know what we should do? We should make a list of like links for beginners for like learning microcontrollers, because I see on the page you were on they had a bunch of articles about ESP32, for example.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This would be one of my top links that I would include. But yeah, that would be a good idea. Maybe we should do it on your website.
Yes.
Maybe I should get a website.
Yes, also.
Yeah, it's about time. So, Stefan, have you ever used Xftool?
No.
Okay, so Xftool...
Oh, wait. This is the thing to remove EXIF from pictures?
Yes, it can remove it. It can also read it. But yes, Xftool is for examining data that's embedded into photos and files. So it turns out...
at least know it.
Yeah, it turns out that Xftool had a bug, and a pretty nasty bug, that would allow, if you opened a certain image, to basically do whatever, just arbitrary code execution. You can see here they're popping calc, which is a bad idea. Here they have an image.jpg. They open it with Xftool, and it instantly allows the hacker to open calc, which is, as Michael's aware, the most menacing thing you can have happen to your computer. So go ahead and update. You can see the update here is pretty straightforward with like what it does. But if you use Xftool, if you have it on your system, don't forget to update this, because you can tell it would be really, really easy to get somebody by just like uploading a file or like making a file available and expecting them to just sniff around and see if there's anything in there. If they use Xftool, which is a really common tool that I've taught myself to journalists, then yeah, that would be an easy way to get a shell. So don't make it easy. All right. One thing I wanted to cover was King County in Washington State could be the first county to ban government use of facial recognition tech. This is kind of a good time for that because there have been numerous stories of people being put through the criminal justice system because of false matches in like facial recognition technology designed to detect suspects or things like Clearview, like making identifications that are not actually accurate and getting innocent people in trouble and dragged through the criminal justice system for absolutely no reason. Stefan, can authorities in Germany use facial recognition to identify you?
This is a good question. There was just a couple of new laws that were passed, and I'm not sure how the situation is right now. Before it was, I believe, not yet allowed, but the politics are working actively on enabling it. But there is resistance to it, also within the EU, like on the EU level, to basically ban it.
Yeah, it really, like, people don't understand that the technology makes mistakes, and humans make mistakes too. So if the technology can make mistakes that humans don't detect, then it doesn't, in my opinion anyway, seem like it's the right time to be introducing this into our society, especially when like a couple years ago, I kind of remember all of us being like, ew, China has like persistent facial recognition, they track you everywhere and they have social credit and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, if you want to start walking towards that, like, this is how you do it. Like, give authorities the ability to arbitrarily run facial recognition, and pretty soon you'll find it running on all cameras that they have access to, and then maybe all citizen-contributed cameras, like Ring cameras or Nest cameras, and then all of a sudden, like, you have facial recognition cameras everywhere that can report your presence, and we're basically talking about the same thing. So
Yeah.
I think this is a step in the right direction. I don't think that I want to normalize every camera that I walk past on a daily basis having facial recognition and logging my position and selling it probably to advertisers.
They basically have to ban it because once the technology is put into place, and we have this everywhere, it can be abused. Like even if you have laws that prohibit it to only certain users, it doesn't matter. The technology is there and we can never get rid of it again.
Yeah.
And then it's very easy for a new player to join the game basically and abuse this. So for example, if we have a leader change and they want to build a more autocratic society, they could easily just then abuse the systems that we put in place for maybe good reasons. And that's why we just cannot allow that.
Yeah, I just don't think it's necessary. Like, if I'm not doing anything wrong whatsoever, if I'm just doing something like using public transportation, like, do I want to know that, like, the second I walk on the property, like, I'm being logged and, like, my use of the public transportation system is, like, part of a record that I have no control over where it goes? Maybe it's sold, maybe it's resold, maybe it's used by another agency. I never consented to access that data. It's just, like, when you start to have that sort of thing creep into everyday life, and then it's like, maybe it's not just the subway, maybe it's also Subway, the sandwich store. They'll sell your data to make some extra money to advertisers who then goes on and sells it to the same agency. Like, it's just weird to know that random different places can basically be storing this information and aggregating it into a big picture view that nobody really consented to, and potentially people you don't want accessing it, like maybe your crazy ex or something, could get access and see exactly where you've been and track you on a pretty fine level. So
yeah,
no, thank you.
You can't keep these things under control, never. And once the data has been recorded, it doesn't go away either.
Right.
That's the problem we have with the internet in general. Who knows what happens to the traces we left, even without knowing what happens to that data in like 30 years. Could be used against us, even if it's completely normal and legal and whatever we did now. But who knows how the world looks in a couple of decades, but the data will still be there.
Yep.
And could be used against us.
Yeah. So another thing that I thought was actually a positive step, it's good to see some good news this week, is the Department of Defense expanding their bug bounty disclosure program to basically any website that's publicly available or any resources that are publicly available. So that means that they're not trying to say like, oh yeah, we know that you found a bug in this system, but you're not allowed to access that. It's like, well, at this point, they've come to grips with reality that if there's a publicly accessible system, anybody can access it, whether they have permission to or not. And that's really what you want to be testing when you have a bug bounty disclosure program. So it's very smart for the Department of Defense to do this, and I'm glad that they are making their systems more secure by allowing people with good intentions to test and report the results of those tests back to them. And hopefully they're also able to pay some hackers who've done some good work making sure that the country's infrastructure is secure.
But this refers only to the DoD infrastructure, right?
Yeah, I was jokingly saying that the DO, like misreading this on purpose and be like, the Department of Defense says that every accessible website in the world is now available for bug bounty disclosure. But no,
that's
it's
what
only...
it says in the headline. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you just read this blindly, it sounds like the Department of Defense has declared like open season on all websites on the internet. But no, if you read a little bit further, it's expanding to the Department of Defense's.
Okay.
Yeah. Now you're making me paranoid. All publicly accessible
I'm just
DoD
making
websites
sure.
and applications.
Who knows? You can disclose bugs from other websites to them. I mean, they could set something like that up.
No. So while the Bleeping Computer article title is a little bit largesse in scope, perhaps, no. In fact, it's just DoD websites and applications. So still a really good step in the right direction. And I like to see like government entities getting at least in line with reality when it comes to the way that their systems need to be tested in order to keep them safe. So, all right, Stefan, how do you feel about Signal getting banned while attempting to create ads on Instagram that pull the demographic information or the advertiser information for that individual and present it to the user in kind of a startling and disjointing way?
This is genius. I'm asking myself, like, didn't anyone do this before? Like, is this something new? There must have been other projects that did the same thing, but it's now different that Signal did this on such a large scale, and I just love the whole idea. It's amazing, and obviously I hate that they banned it. Do you know why did they ban it? Actually, did they have a good reason for it?
Okay, so it's very hypocritical. So Facebook forbids you to show the users you're targeting the information you've targeted them with.
Wow.
Because it would make them look bad.
Yeah.
So Facebook as a user of Instagram or Facebook, the advertisers have incredibly sophisticated and granular knowledge of you. Like they're analyzing your photos, they're recognizing stuff that you're posting, they're recognizing locations you're posting. They're recognizing all this information so they can present like a palette of information, like a newlywed Pilates instructor who loves cartoons and lives in La Jolla. They're into parenting blogs and LGBTQ adoption. Like this is the amount of information that you can expect advertisers to be able to very granularly target you with. And they are also, again, forbidden from sharing this with you. And you are not allowed to know how these people are targeting you. So there are some very niche things that they can target you on. They can even kind of target your emotional state or the emotional state they expect you to be after a certain kind of event in your life. So, like, this is kind of amazing to me because the only Facebook platform I maintain in any way, shape, or form is Instagram. And the ads that I'm targeted with on Instagram are basically selling trash. I have like magical crystals that are supposed to make me less depressed, and I also have techno trash where I have like an armband with a microcontroller in it that has like 2 or 3 components that's supposedly going to resonate something that makes me less depressed. Stay tuned for our peer-reviewed studies, which are never coming. So like it's kind of startling to me that like these garbage like hawking ads are being mass targeted at me for something that I am not allowed to know. I can't really go and see exactly which characteristics are being used to target these horrible ads to me, but I do know that I'm consistently getting the same kind of ads that are going after the same kind of person. So, Yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
this was a brilliant project, and it really exposes the hypocrisy of Facebook. It is not for you at all. You are a very
No.
small part of their business. They're trying to automate as much as possible so they never have to interact or deal with you. Almost 100% of their attention is like basically like milking all the data that you put into their system and refining it and selling it as a finished product to these people that are willing to spend 20, 50, $100 to sell literal garbage. Like,
Have we talked about the iOS update?
no, I don't think so.
Okay, because there's this drama with Facebook, Apple doing an iOS update, which makes the user aware if an app is tracking you,
Oh, yeah.
and you can disable it very easily. And for the user, this is great. And Facebook has basically a hate campaign against this, where they claim that this will kill small businesses. And I'm just like, why, dude? The if we go back to the Instagram ads, those are the small businesses Facebook tries to save. Are you kidding me? I mean,
These
literally
are- these are
only
like-
trash. And
I know the business behind a lot of these. These are people that are drop shipping things they can buy like hundreds
Yes.
of thousands of from China and like sitting in like a Hollywood Hills mansion, spending maybe like 10 like I don't know 10 hours in a week on this like side project and lazily just trying to like sell a bunch of like just trash that they can get at like really low cost. Like that's the small business that's like
and I
suffering
feel
here.
it-
And
I
the other
find
thing
it
that
so,
that they're threatening is
hypocritical.
they're saying keep Facebook free.
It's so hypocritical that they try to use small businesses as an argument against privacy. Like this is not against small business. You are just trying to save your biggest way of generating money.
Which
It's
is tracking
saving it's saving a monopoly. It's not about small businesses. They are just some of them are basically abused as like their voices are abused for this campaign, and it's just I hate everything about it.
Well, yeah,
and I
on
hate
the
Facebook.
on the user side, they're trying to get users to allow Facebook to track them by implying that Instagram and Facebook will become a paid product. Can you imagine the bluff that is? Like,
Yeah.
well, like, do you know how many people would not use Facebook if they had to pay for it? Like, if Facebook had to take your credit card to be used, like, what? Like, no,
Yeah.
like instantly somebody would come up with a free service that's like free for like 10 years that gathers all your data, but does it in like a very like low key way, doesn't show you any ads, and like then turns around and sells all that data like Raytheon or something. But like somebody will come up with something that would replace them if they actually made it like a paid product. So the amount of just like sheer bluffing here is just like, I'm sorry, you're not going to make your product that gathers data from people for free on a massive scale paid, because that's not how you make money. Like, it's just very, very
Yes.
silly. So, all right, let's move on. I'm getting all riled up, but
Yeah, me too.
yeah, okay. So, Stefan, did you see this email that I got?
Yeah, it sounds very trustworthy.
Congratulations, dear USPS.com customer. Every Thursday, we select 200 lucky USPS. What I love about this is like the USPS.com is obviously like copy pasted in. So this whole thing is in different fonts and it looks like a ransom letter. My favorite here is
Even the button.
yeah, even the reward. Like obviously like reward is like just a pasted in field or something. So it's like all like low and it's capitalized for no reason. And then we have delivered by ACI LC and USPS company. Is this supposed to be LLC, but they typed like a period and okay, I can't even analyze this enough. But so let's suffice it to say phishing emails are out there, but this is one of my favorite ones I've received recently because like I give this one like a 2 out of 10. Like it's like legible, and I guess one if you were very tired could be convinced to click on it if you lost your glasses, I guess, and like were in a hurry. I don't know. But this was very funny to me. I did not even bother to see where this went. I think it was just like a malicious form fill to try to get you to log into USPS. But yeah, very, very not convincing. Okay, so one thing I wanted to shout out was our good friend and sometimes co-host on this show, Nick Godshall, debuted on a new show on Hack5 this week. So we've been working on this for quite some time, and we've also been appearing on Hack5, but it was exciting for us to launch a new show, Hackbite, which is surprisingly similar to the old Nullbyte series, but different. And you can see here that even though it just launched yesterday, it already has, whoa, wow, almost 18,000 views. So the reaction to this has been super, super positive. This initial episode is how to find anything on the internet with Google Dork. So if you want to find some really interesting information on OSINT, you can go through and watch this video. I thought it went super well. Everybody seemed to really like it as well. We've got great feedback. So I was really, really stoked to have Nick be on yet another platform. And if you've enjoyed having him on our show, then you can find him on Hack5 as well. Okay, so there was a big debate about net neutrality in our country, and it turns out that big telecom companies paid to heavily influence this debate and silence the voices of consumers who were genuinely concerned about net neutrality. So it turns out that this debate was never fair. The big telecom companies use their money to basically buy a whole bunch of voices that seemed to be in favor of what they wanted. And they thought that this was a perfectly legitimate way of, I have no idea, like, I guess getting their agenda across with no regard for the opinions of the people who they are supposed to be serving. But this to me is just an example of how wildly out of touch some of these companies are with what the people they serve want. These entities seem to know exactly what they want, but they don't really seem to understand what people who are going to be using their services in the future want for themselves and for their children. So I get kind of pissed about this because when you have a public forum that's supposed to be a legitimate exchange of ideas and a gauging of what the public feels about a certain issue, if you have these companies that are so willing to make extra money and protect their own interests against the interests of those who they're supposed to be serving, that they will pay to just do disingenuous stuff like this, like, it just sucks, and it makes me think that there needs to be more regulation and more punishment for these sorts of abuses when it comes to just making the voices of average Americans not be heard through flooding them and drowning them out with a bunch of automated comments.
Wait, Cody, are you saying the free market isn't regulating itself?
I would never say that. However, I will say that these telecom companies are doing some really sketchy stuff in order to make sure that ordinary people are not heard when it comes to the way that the internet will be in the future. So if you like the internet, if you're using it right now, it might be worth it to get a little bit invested in this debate to make sure that these efforts from other companies to greatly drown out your own opinion in the way the internet will be isn't running rampant over the internet you're going to be using in 5 or 10 years. Like, if you want to have a say in what the internet looks like, if you want to make sure you have access to the services that you enjoy using, then please make sure you understand the net neutrality debate and understand why it's so sketchy to have people speaking for you when those people are the telecom companies that may not want the same thing that you want.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of OSINT recently, and a really good OSINT investigation I saw, if you want to find examples of how OSINT can be used to really find a lot of interesting information, is this year-long project working with leaked offshore banking data. So if you've ever wanted to understand how the elites and people who are out there trying to hide massive amounts of wealth are actually doing this, this guy has not only gone through and analyzed the information, he's also done some breakdowns of exactly how this happened, like how the data was leaked. I love the Finance Fisher story. And then gone into whose money is out there and broken down some information about what exactly it means to have power versus wealth, or just be like hiding money. And he came to some interesting conclusions, like people who have clients of offshore bank accounts are richer than average. They mostly come from richer countries and are likely to be wealthy compared to others in their country of origin. Not a huge surprise, but some of the other stuff was showing that there's a lot of issues with corruption because political elites tend to also have substantially more money in these offshore bank accounts than just like random like business people that are trying to hide money. So it seems like this has uncovered a lot of corruption, and it's also uncovered a lot of just people hiding money. So a really fascinating way of using data breaches to kind of enhance reporting and display a lot of data in a way that really makes it clear for people what's being done here and how this kind of shadow world works. This is fascinating, and I highly recommend if you're interested in OSINT, you take a read to see how journalists can use something like a data breach to kind of blow wide open the shadowy world of sketchy people hiding their money and really powerful politicians moving money around in a way to evade taxes and defraud their home countries. So this also came up fairly recently on my timeline, and I wanted to include it because a lot of people use PayPal. Turns out that it's relatively easy to get somebody's home address or the address they have registered with PayPal just by using a PayPal Twitter tip jar. So PayPal is not that great with personal information, and they have a reputation for leaking this sort of thing. So that's not incredibly surprising. But for people who use PayPal, you should be aware that it can be abused in various ways to get personal information that you may have submitted into the app, such as the address you have associated with it. So be very careful with PayPal, and just be aware that if you're using it for something like a Twitter tip jar, it could be exposing that address to the entire world.
Yeah,
So-
can I just say generally, if you trust the merchant and you can pay using another payment method, use another payment method. PayPal is also has the highest fees compared to any like other payment system you can use online, and it has awful support. You don't get anything for these high fees. It's just ugh. And I'm saying this from a perspective where I'm using this to make money. You know, you pay with PayPal, you don't have the fees. I pay the fees. But that also means I make less money if you pay with PayPal. I have more work because PayPal is often very annoying, keeping money for themselves or having other issues, and they just won't help you, even though you pay them a lot of money, you know. It's just very annoying. So if you want to help out creators, to avoid PayPal in general.
Okay, so next up we have a piece of news that sounds like it's from several years ago, but it's not. It's a new Spectre attack. And this one, once again, is sending Intel and AMD scrambling for a fix because we know this was like an architecture problem, like kind of from the start. And now they've tried to release a couple patches, and some researchers have found a new attack that breaks pretty much all of them. So, Stefan, can you explain what speculative execution is? Because it's so cool.
No?
Okay.
I
well,
don't
I'll do
know
it.
enough.
I'll do it. So speculative execution is the way that a lot of these like new processors work, where it'll try to speed up an execution of some program or something by executing something in advance. So it will try to guess. It basically has like a section of itself that is dedicated to like guessing what the next exit, like the next, I guess, instruction is going to be,
Yeah,
and it will execute it in advance. So then if the next instruction ends up being that thing, it can leap forward and actually improve the speed of the processor. So that's super cool. And if it guesses wrong, then it will just roll back that execution and everything should be fine. Now, the problem that they found originally was that they could, through some sneaky like data like exposure, basically poison the system to start doing things that it was not supposed to do. And they could kind of like guide this thing off the rails in order to start leaking data that allowed hackers to do, they allowed hackers to see what was going on in the system and potentially make things even worse. So that was what was really cool about this. Was I didn't even know about speculative execution before this, and I didn't know that there was like a little chip inside the chip that was like basically doing things in advance and then rolling it back if it was wrong, and just like placing its bets and then just like trying to make the system faster by guessing. But speculative execution is pretty cool, except for the fact that it comes with a bunch of horrible vulnerabilities that have now been haunting us since 2018. So, oops. Good idea, but I guess the way that it was executed is still proving to be a little bit troublesome. And when this came out, you know, it was big news because they're like, recommendations, replace chip. And they're just like, well, we can't do that. So then they came up with a bunch of like other like, you know, workarounds, but they're just like, no, you guys, like this problem is bad. Like we might have to just replace the chips. And they're like, no, we'll fix it. But like, it's 2021, like they're still finding the same problems in various places. So it's like, we're still going back to the original device. It was like, you guys might need to replace the chip. Like, I think they built it in a way that causes this problem. But, you know, it seems like they're going to try to fix it. But don't be surprised if you see in a year or so another Spectre or Meltdown problem related to, that's related at least to the same original issue. really, really interesting if you guys want to look it up. This has been going on for quite some time, and the whole Spectre and Meltdown debacle has been a really big deal ever since it came out. It's just interesting to see it continuing to affect various builds.
Yeah, the truth is the x86 architecture is pretty much done. It's just the monopoly in the desktop market, so it will take a very long time to be replaced by something else. But this is basically another big nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that's man.
They can't easily fix that. It's in the architecture itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. So yeah, interesting to see that this is persisting and that it's going to be around for a while. So you use an Android phone, right?
Yep.
Okay, me too. So apparently before this update, it was possible to do another, I think it was like a use after free or something, attack using an NFC token. So this is really interesting. And what is cool about it is apparently it's like an NFC tag or an NFC token that when processed can do some nefarious things on the system. So I don't often see a lot of like NFC issues, but it was really interesting to see one that did involve that. So you can check out the Android Security Bulletin if you want to take a look at what was changed, but really just like some NFC bugs and some other stuff that was updated.
So you could scan a malicious NFC tag and it would do some crazy stuff on your phone?
And it would do, yeah, basically.
Or it would make the phone do crazy stuff, basically.
This is my general understanding. I read a high-level review of it, but I haven't actually looked at what the bug was fixing, or like how it was rated as a high-severity bug, though. Yeah, I'll have to. Yeah. I don't want to say anything inaccurate about it, so just keep it to NFC bug fixed, and it could do some crazy bad stuff. There you go. So one last story I wanted to cover was I've always been a little bit leery of some of these IoT systems that are supposed to provide home security, because it seems like one small problem could make it really easy to do something like, I don't know, disable them or turn them off when they're not supposed to be off. So it turns out that actually happened. So it looked like there was a bug that allowed you to actually just remotely disable this alarm system, which is a terrible, terrible thing. So, wow, there's 11,679 of these devices out there currently, mostly in Germany, apparently. 10,000 of them are there. So tell your friends, Stefan.
Yeah, this is a German company.
Yeah, so
they do like the classical kind of locks, and then because it's the 21st century, of course they have to digitalize it, and so they started doing this weird stuff that they don't really know about, and like don't really know how to do it well, and so you see these trash products. I'm not even sure if they manufacture it themselves. I think they outsourced this to like a cheap offshore company and then just slap their logo on it. But I might be wrong. I don't know the details of this story in particular.
Yeah, in this case, it looks like only 10% of the devices out there are currently using the actual like latest version of the software that has been patched. So that means that about 90% of them are currently running a version that is vulnerable. And again, like if you have a product, like an IoT product that performs a critical function, like, I don't know, securing your home, or like a security alarm, and suddenly it has one of these problems, it's publicly acknowledged, but it doesn't automatically update its firmware, you got a problem, because now only 10% of your users are protected, and unless they go through and make sure that this has been fixed, you're potentially providing a vulnerability in someone's home that's their security system that they rely on. So this is just one of those examples of IoT bugs that have the potential to be really severe. Like often we're talking about bugs in like light bulbs and stuff like that. But as IoT devices become increasingly integrated into like home security systems and other more critical systems, it really becomes more likely that we're going to see problems like this that could allow someone to like break into a home or do something much more severe than just make someone's lights turn on or off. Is this live or pre-recorded? It's live, Townsick CR7. But yes, so...
Is it?
Yeah, so that's pretty much all the news I have for this week. If anybody has questions about this news, we've got about maybe 5 minutes left or so. It was really exciting also to do this week. I did an OSINT presentation, both as a Security Forward episode, and then I did a big webinar where I went completely ham on Theranos and designed a bunch of highly sophisticated phishing emails. I even went through the trouble of all up until the point of purchase, getting a domain that looked exactly like their lawyer's domain, so I could send a phishing email about I don't know, them getting sued again or whatever. And then I had to take a detour and start examining North Korea because it turns out that Theranos doesn't have web infrastructure up anymore. So I used Maltego to do some OSINT investigation of the North Korean internet. So I basically took a single North Korean domain, found a bunch of North Korean domains, and then was able to identify real vulnerabilities that currently exist on these North Korean IP addresses. So it was kind of a fun demonstration of how you could take a company, learn who their employees are, send phishing emails, and also find real current vulnerabilities, all within 45 minutes of OSINT search. So it was pretty cool. If you guys want to check it out, I did the North Korean one. I think it's currently pinned on my Twitter, or you can go to hackingwithfriends.com as always. And the Varonis webinar that I did, which was a little bit more beefy, I think they're probably going to have me do it again because people really liked it. So stay tuned maybe in a month or so, and I'll probably be doing that one a second time because it was a lot of fun and people seem to really like it. Oh, yeah, somebody was asking why Zam's name shows up blue in the chat. It's because he's a mod. He's in charge. But let's see. Oh, also, after our last stream, a bunch of people bought some of Stefan's products after we warned them that it was going to be harder to make them in the future. So thank you, everyone, to who has supported Stefan and other creators by buying their stuff or whatever else. It's always appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to conferences coming up in the near future. I don't know how everyone feels. Stefan, your country is in a much different position than mine is when it comes to vaccinations and stuff. But here people are talking about even potentially going to DEF CON, even though it seems like most of our colleagues at Hack5 will be sitting this one out. How do you, once people are vaccinated and stuff, are you going to be going back to conferences, or are you going to be sitting it out for a while and just waiting to see how things go?
Super hard to say right now, just because we are not really in this place yet, and it's really hard to even imagine being in that position where you can even plan for meetups again. It's just weird. But the vaccination speed here is increasing a lot. So probably in a month or two we will have caught up with you, hopefully.
That would be good news. That would be really good news. But yeah, I mean, for us over here, some conferences are starting to do hybrid stuff again. A lot of workplaces are starting to open up again. I'm not sure yet, but I'm slightly leaning towards very minimally going and doing a couple distance interviews, just so I have. It's really about access to talent and making sure we can get some excellent material to make great Hack5 episodes or other good episodes for the rest of the year. So I'm kind of sort of leaning towards maybe going, but just only scheduling interviews and then using the media spaces to give us. Because the good news is it's probably going to be way more empty than usual. So shooting a one-on-one interview or something is probably going to be a lot easier in a much bigger space. So I'm still kind of thinking about it, but I know a lot of people are still just it's not going to happen until kind of towards the end of the year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But if any of you guys are planning on going to any security conferences, let me know, and let me know what is influencing your decision, because we're trying to make our decision as to whether or not we're going to go to things like DEF CON or even I think SlushyCon or some of the other conferences that are coming up later in the year. It feels weird after a year of isolation. But okay, I think that's going to...
Will be interesting if C3 happens this year, because it's at the very end of the year, but it's hard to predict where we will be at that point of time, because it's also winter again. So if COVID is still going on there because of a new variant, or because not enough people are vaccinated or don't want to be vaccinated, who knows? It's really hard to say. And also, how are other countries dealing with this? Because Germany could be good at that point of time. But what about like our neighbor countries? I mean, a conference like C3 is very international, so I don't think they would do it just for Germans. Then they would rather delay the conference or sit it out for a year.
Yeah, and I really think it's important to do things right. And we've got a year of experience like making conferences virtual. So some of these hybrid ones I think can be done safely. And like I think that there's a lot of potential for maybe having better broadcasts, having like, you know, more people be able to have access to good infrastructure to do their talk and like make sure it looks really good and that it's easy for them, but maybe less people actually in the audience and trying to interact. Because that's the only thing I'm just like, I love seeing you guys, but like maybe not this year. Like, you know, we can chat from a distance, like we can have discussions, but like no one needs to be like up in my face, like taking selfies, like not this year. But then again, I'm going to have a giant mask, so no one will know who I am. But okay. I think that's all we have time for this time. We had lots of different things we went through. Hopefully next week I will have more than 3.5 seconds of flight time. I'm sure I'll have at least 15 to 20 seconds of flight time, you guys. And don't listen to the haters. I think my aircraft is beautiful and that its self-destruct system is a feature and not a bug. Why would I want some grubby kids getting their hands on my drone? I worked hard on it.
I wanna see it explode.
Yeah, I think you can almost guarantee that it will explode at some point unless I make some pretty major design changes. It needs like a metal plate behind it to like protect it that it can't punch through because it really, those bolts are sharp. All right.
Make a Michael Bay movie out of it.
Yeah, well, maybe if I mount like a GoPro to it, I can watch it crash and explode and sell the footage on the internet.
Could it lift the GoPro?
Yeah, it absolutely can.
Really?
The brushless motor I got is actually pretty powerful, as is the LiPo battery and the speed controller. So that thing could actually lift like a fair amount of heft. It's more about making sure that it's balanced and stable. Because it flew, it just, you know, down.
Not very long, yeah.
Yeah, it just slipped and then flew down. All right. That's all we have time for today. Thank you again, Stefan, for joining us. Make sure to check out our streams next week. We'll be live on hopefully Wednesday and Friday, and you can also check out our stream on Tuesday. We'll be live in the chat then. Also, make sure to check out the SecurityFWD channel. As someone mentioned, we've also had Mike on doing the Security Certification Study Hour. He wasn't able to do it this week, but he will be back. So if you like that show, I will also make sure to say hi to him, 8-Bit Oni. I know that you check out that show pretty often. So yeah, check out our other shows. You can also check out our sometimes co-host Killian on his own show, Threat Update, on the Ronis brand channel. Haven't been shouting that out lately, but they are still doing their thing. It's awesome. So if you want to check that out and see what's really happening to other large companies who are under attack in various ways and kind of telling us what's up and out there, then you can find out what those companies are up against and what they're doing to defend themselves. All right, see you guys next time. Bye.